Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Truck Before. This time, Whispers. Yeah, Whispers. It's a DS9 episode. Whispers on It's All Been Truck Before. I rarely whisper about this. Patreon.com/IABD. Get behind the scenes. Get the video of our podcast. See the stuff that, gets cut out of what you might hear on the regular feed. See our faces. See Key's backgrounds. See our cats. It don't cost much. Patreon.com/IABD, and you will be loved and be loved forever by us. But now, listen to us talk about Whispers. DS9 on It's All Been Truck Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Truck. It's me.
Oh, this is Steven.
Jimmy-Jerome. And we are here to talk about the Deep Space Nine episode, In Your Whisper. What was your first impression of Whispers?
Now I sound like Don Corleone. This was one of the classic, all right, what's the reveal? And the reveal ends up being pretty good, I think, actually. Not awesome. And also it was one of those things where the reveal, I wanted it to come early. Instead, we get it very, very late. And that part's good. The rest of the episode, what it led to me doing was zoning out for about 20 minutes, more or less, in the middle of the episode. Because it's like, all right, we get it. There's something going on here. Just tell us what it is. So, yeah, that's my first impression.
Yeah, I'm with you. It wasn't terrible, but it seemed right at the beginning. It's a gimmicky thing that they just stretched out too long. I do think this is not the last time someone in Deep Space Nine will be replaced by a double. And the next time they do it, it'll be more interesting. So I feel like the writers of the show were like, oh, that was an interesting concept. We didn't do it very well. Let's redo it down the line and do it better. But yeah, it was okay. And that's the best I can say for it. It just was not, I don't know.
Again, it seemed like we could have got where we ended up. Again, I thought the payoff was actually a good payoff, but
it's okay.
I
wouldn't say it was great. It was an okay payoff, in my opinion.
And maybe it's just because I feel like we've had so many much worse ones, payoffs of waiting.
Unlike Next Gen, where we've had such a lackluster season, we've had an actual good season of DS9, and so
that's true too.
If we were putting this in the Next Gen season 7, it would rank a lot higher than it's going to rank in DS9 season 2.
So I read a thing somewhere out there, it might have been on Wikipedia, about they called these O'Brien Suffers episodes.
Yep.
And that's what they said. And they said it's because, and I think we've actually talked about this already, which is that, because O'Brien's the everyman that we all identify with, which again makes sense, and we've talked about it. But actually, I'll jump to my alternate episode, or at least one of them. You know what? If this episode was about Dax, who isn't even in the episode, right?
Yeah.
Then I'm more interested.
Well, she was in it. She just very briefly.
Was she? Okay. I was I couldn't even remember. And maybe it's just, that I love Terry Farrell, but, well, it actually is. I would rather watch her go through this. That might have kept me a little more interested. But yeah, there's 6 more episodes of what they call O'Brien Must Suffer. Or 6 other episodes, I should say. I don't know if we've hit these yet or not. Whispers marks the first of several episodes in which O'Brien is put under intense psychological pressure, jokingly dubbed O'Brien Must Suffer episodes.
This is the first? I was going to say the storyteller's kind of one.
Yeah. The producers and writers felt that such episodes would appeal to viewers due to O'Brien's everyman quality. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the story would have been better if it were a different crew person. Yeah. And it was better than most of the things Gates McFadden got to play in Crusher-centric episodes.
Jesus, yes. Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, I think me saying Dax is just, I enjoy looking at Terry Farrell. So,
yeah. Right at the top, I wanted to mention there was a guest star that you may have recognized.
Susan
the
Bay?
Admiral.
Admiral?
Susan Bay Nimoy, who played an admiral in the second episode of Deep Space Nine ever, Leonard Nimoy's wife. So, another Nepo role. Well, only guest star worth mentioning. I mean, I guess DeCurtis was played by Todd Waring, but he doesn't have a ton of credits, so I'm just going to skip it. We start out this episode with O'Brien doing his monologue thing. I didn't write any notes about that because, why?
I noticed that, and I think we talked about it actually in one of the Crusher episodes where she was like, Oh, I don't know. Well, she was essentially doing the same kind of personal log.
Yep.
It's that MASH, Radar or Hawkeye Riding Home or West Wing. Sorkin used it a lot too with the guy. He was on Sports Night too. Oh, I can't remember the guy's name.
Joshua Malina.
Joshua Malina, yeah. Him writing home to his parents or whatever as a way to get to the stuff. And it's a device. I just think it's
CJ did in West Wing too. Allison's going to get...
Yes. I think for those that work better...
better because they're writing to someone.
Yeah.
This is just his own diary.
Yes. And those are also more of... They're kind of like... Was Data's Day? Was that a log? Or was that just... Or Day in Life of Data? I can't remember. But I think those are more interesting just because they're more interesting episodes, and plus there's more other things going on. This is just, I got to tell you about this just in case you think I'm crazy too, which the episode gets into Hitchcockian kind of things, which is giving it more praise than I think it deserves, but it kind of tries to go there, but I still necessarily like the device.
The problem I kept having with this personal log thing was who is it to? I know he tried calling an admiral and they weren't receptive, so at this point he thinks like there's the conspiracy's deep. But honestly, who's going to read his personal, or who's going to listen to his personal log?
He literally says it right away. I don't know who's going to hear this. I don't even know if I'll be live by the time this log is recovered. I figure they'll be coming after me. So yeah, he literally says at the top, like, I don't know who's going to hear this. It's like, yeah, exactly.
So it felt like it would be one thing if he's like recording a message and he's going to send it to Card. Like that would be so much better. Like,
right.
I'm going to send it to you for help because you're the only one I can trust. Even my wife, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. It's to nobody. It's like, it's pointless. Anyway.
Yeah.
So after that scene, he wakes up. Keiko's not in bed and he goes out, and Keiko and Molly are treating him super suspiciously, and Keiko immediately starts fishing for information from him, which made me suspicious. But I guess in retrospect, because later I'm trying to like put the pieces together of what was happening. In retrospect, Cisco must have called her in the middle of the night, woken her up and said, hey, we've got suspicions. And don't alarm him though, because that could screw things up. So you have to have breakfast, but she was so impatient, she got Molly up early and had breakfast early to get them out, but also was going out of her way not to alarm Miles. Was probably fishing for information to try to figure out what her and Cisco were already talking, like what's going on. Because then Molly never comes back because you got to get the child to safety and you don't know what's going on with him. So that to me makes a lot. And then of course they don't tell Jake to stay away from him because they wouldn't think they need to until they learn that, oh, Jake's going to meme out with them. No, you can't. Stay away. You're keeping vulnerable people away from O'Brien, but you're letting it play out because you don't know what's going on.
That makes sense.
Right?
I thought Keiko was terrible and not believable at all.
I mean, my first thought was they just have a bad marriage and they're having a fight again.
So, I wrote another Keiko O'Brien fight. Oh, wow, great. That grounds it in reality.
I wrote down in here relatively late, can we please just have one episode where O'Brien and Keiko get along? Because I know this is meant to be like, something's up because they're fighting, but to the rest to the audience, it's like, no, it's Tuesday because they're fighting.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
Just one. I think we do actually get to see them happy. But then when O'Brien later says, that's not my Keiko, I'm like, are you kidding me? Because it's the Keiko we've seen in every episode.
Yeah, which Keiko are you talking about?
The Keiko from Data's Day that we've never seen again when they were happily married.
So, what is Ensign de Curtis doing in that hole in the wall when O'Brien comes in and starts yelling at him about, why are you doing this? Well,
he's setting up security procedures, but they've cut O'Brien out of it.
But it looks like he's painting the wall. I don't know what he's doing in that.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know the specific action. He's painting security measures on there.
Yeah, it just looked like they were supposed to come up with something better, and they're just like, you know what? Just move that device around, and we'll put some lights around it. And yeah,
it's like on Scrubs, where if they need the janitor in a scene where there's carpet, he's still mopping because they don't think anybody's going to pay that much attention.
I think that's.
I don't know. They talk about this on the Scrubs podcast that's hosted by Dama Fazian and Zach Braff.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, the lobby has carpet, and we clearly see the janitor mopping in there several times.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, because you just have him in the scene. You need him to do busy work, so he's there. and they don't want to put a vacuum because that would mess with the audio, right? So
yeah, that is.
He's always mopping. Anyway. Then we get the scene of Cisco and Keiko secretly talking, which is probably her going, okay, I got Molly out. What are we going to do? Do something.
Yeah. And I wrote the same thing I mentioned last week, which is Keiko cheating. It's not that big a space station. I mean,
I didn't think she was cheating with Cisco. That never came up to my mind.
I definitely knew that too, but the fact
Cisco could do better.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah. I love Rosalind Chow, but
I do too. I just don't like Keiko O'Brien.
Yep. That's a good point too.
It's not her fault. They just keep writing poorly for her.
Yes.
I want O'Brien and Keiko to show up in New Trek and for us to, because I love Cole Meany, so they can both come. But then I want to see them actually happily married, doing productive things and having a good life together, and Keiko being a good character. I want to see that. And they can have grown up Molly. That actress is still around. Anyway. Then O'Brien's being followed. So at this point, like, I'm starting to think already, even before Bashir blackmails O'Brien to get the physical and Cisco makes him get it, I'm already starting to think, like, okay, this is all paranoia. It's all in O'Brien's head. I never once thought that the thing wrong was Keiko and Cisco and Bashir and everybody. I always thought it had to be O'Brien. Like, what's the story with him? Did they put, like, a virus in him that makes him paranoid or something?
Uh-huh. Yeah,
which is not what they wanted us to think.
Yeah, and again, I hate the just tell us what the deal is, but this one at least had me wondering to a point, and then like I said, then 45-minute episode, so I guess 20 minutes in I stopped caring. I shouldn't say I stopped caring, I was just like, let me know when we get to the reveal. Because nothing interesting was going on after that. It was just, well, we're just gonna do this because we have to fill 45 minutes or whatever. But
we are up to a note that I enjoyed was when Bashir was asking O'Brien, like, what are you feeling, all these things? And lists them, and O'Brien goes, all of them, especially euphoria, lots of euphoria. But he wasn't, like, that's O'Brien said it very angrily and annoying. I don't know, I thought that was funny. So he catches Cisco in a lie. They won't let O'Brien arrange security. They won't let him do anything. They're lying about the sealed quarters. And he discovers equipment's been sabotaged, which is clearly just to keep him busy. At that point, is there any part of you that thinks the problem is with somebody other than O'Brien?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, because early on, it's like, well, everyone's acting weird. So, and, I went to holodeck, or was it, I started thinking it was like, that
episode where Riker was captured?
Yes. Yes.
I thought that
I started thinking that too. And again, I was just like, let's get there. But
then Keiko refused to sleep with him. So I'm like, oh no, he's fine. It's regular life.
Yeah. Well, I thought that too. Absolutely. that kind of made sense. And then I thought, I guess it makes sense that Keiko wouldn't want to sleep with the clone.
And they don't know it's a clone at that point. And they don't know what exactly it is. And
you're right.
It's a clone. They don't know that it's.
You're right. Well, and my other alternate episode was the rescue of actual O'Brien. That's the episode I want to see, is them going and rescuing actual O'Brien from the Paradins, whatever they are.
I don't know.
Yeah. Rather than this whole thing. Yeah.
My alternate episode is the conspiracy is real, and it continues into further episodes. Not that Cisco is evil or whatever, but that there's an actual conspiracy and nobody believes him, but it is true, and O'Brien follows up and whatever. Anyway. But Keiko makes O'Brien the stew that she hates. Is that just like a test? I guess?
That scene feels very much just for us, in hindsight, especially. But and that's where it gets real Hitchcockian to me. The music kind of swells up, and there's eye contact, and there's eyes, and the food, and
to me that was Keiko being.
It looks like beef stew. That's good. It looks good to me.
I'm not a big beef stew fan. But to me, it was Keiko being passive aggressive, which again, typical Keiko. It's Tuesday. But she made him a meal she likes, but she won't eat it because she hates it. So she's eating the salad because she's not hungry, but like trying to make him feel guilty that she served this meal that she won't eat.
So
Which, what? They go to the replicator, they can have separate dishes. They don't have to eat the same thing.
What was the end game there? What was she trying to do? To see what he would do?
My guess is with the full knowledge of the episode that because they don't know what this thing is that is masquerades O'Brien. Yeah. Let's give him his favorite dish. Let's see how he reacts.
Okay.
But she does ask him how it is, which I think is, again, her trying to see how he reacts. But my thought at the time was, it's from the replicator. Doesn't every time the replicator make this stew, it tastes exactly the same? Like, it's not going to be... When you make something by hand, sometimes it's better than others. It wouldn't be that way with the replicator.
When she says dinner is going to get cold, I'm like, well, don't you just put it back in the replicator or just replicate some more? And
he says later, the replicator can keep it warm.
Right, yeah. And maybe we've talked about this, but how does the replicator technology work? Like, is it like a magic transporter beam? Like, it's just like...
It's like a 3D printer, but quick.
Okay, that makes sense. It's
got all the ingredients and it puts them all together real quick.
Okay. So it can, that makes sense. It can synthesize whatever it is.
Yeah.
So do we think that homemade beef stew, I know you don't like stew, but homemade actual pizza made is better than replicated pizza probably?
Oh yeah. I think there's been a number of times where Star Trek characters have said replicated food sucks.
Right. Yeah.
Along the original series, it looked like cubes, so it's gotten better, but...
good. That's a good point. We really get into O'Brien's whole coffee thing in this episode. He
really likes Jamaican blends. Double sweet, double strong.
Yeah. I was like, all right, we get it.
I don't know. I don't know what that was about, but I did think the episode picked up slightly when Odo comes back, because Odo was absent and O'Brien goes to him. But it is weird that Sisko didn't bother to fill Odo in until after O'Brien had a chance to meet him and fill him in.
Yeah, and
that's like a call Odo ahead and be like, hey, you're not here, but you're coming back. Let me tell you what's going on.
I think it's that I think O'Brien says to Odo, they got to you too. And that's where it gets me to like, they're trying to do a Hitchcockian or 70s paranoid thriller, and they get some of those elements, but that if you're going for that, the payoff is very not good. And I mean, and that's a high bar in my brain anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
And they were not going to get there with this. So, and they did not. Oh, these are just some quotes. Sisko's tossing the baseball around and says, I guess I dropped the ball, and then sets the baseball down. I'm like, that's when I was like, all right, which one's the weird person here? Is Sisko the off clone? And I did think that for a while, but again, like I thought it was, we created this whole world for you based on what we think you would react to.
Mm-hmm.
When O'Brien's getting his physical, he mentions maybe I can grow you a hangnail, which I hit on me right away. So in the menagerie, Spock has to get McCoy to go back to the Enterprise. And so he says, hey, there's a medical emergency. And McCoy says to Kirk, well, somebody's probably got a hangnail. So I love that that's kind of a callback to a callback to a callback to Star Trek, a hangnail. Not enough pork. We had one scene. Pork, and I feel like we should have had more, but I mean, I always feel that way.
Always. Absolutely.
How did you feel about the trip through the wormhole? Have we've seen inside the wormhole before?
In the pilot.
Yeah, I feel like this one, and maybe it was exactly the same, and I just forgot the original, but it looked very 80s to me. Very 80s video gamey on screen kind of thing.
That's just how the wormhole looks.
Yeah.
It has not aged well, but unfortunately, that's just what it is.
Yeah, maybe when we get the DS9 movie.
That'll never happen, unfortunately. I wish. You tease me. I really wish, but I don't see it happening.
Another weird quote I thought, and I don't know if this doesn't help explain it. The clone, the replicant says, computer, allow it to catch up to us. What does that mean to the computer's like, all right. And I'm like, what does that mean? Catch up to us? I guess it's the computer's like, this is what I think catching up to us mean. I guess the computer's pretty smart, but to understand, idioms or colloquialisms or whatever. But I was like, could you at least get the computer to like, let it get within a kilometer or 5 kilometers or whatever. But
like, yeah, I mean, I just kept thinking it was interesting that he was having the computer do everything, but he was still constantly typing on the pad, and I'm like, what are you doing if the computer's doing everything?
Right. And he couldn't get access to things through the computer, but he still trusted the
And before that, they attacked O'Brien, but he was prepared. Mm-hmm. But why? Well, the thing that really struck me was weird was when the one officer fired at him, then stopped, and then O'Brien jumped out and fired at him. And I'm like, they're not guns. You can just keep the beam on, right? You don't have to keep stopping.
Right. Well, and I thought, did he kill those guys or did he just stun them?
No, he stunned them.
Okay. Which I think makes sense.
I assume.
That in my brain, it would be like, okay, this sounds fun. I don't want to kill anyone, even if I think they're trying to kill me. Because, yeah. He's not sure what's going on yet.
Absolutely. So, there's sensors in every quarters because O'Brien has the sensors, like scan all that stuff for Keiko, to see if there's a virus or something's wrong. But then when O'Brien ducks in a service corridor, they can't find him. I know this is a common Star Trek thing where the internal sensors never work consistently for story purposes. They just do whatever the story needs them to do. But it seems really odd that he can make all those internal quarters searches and then they can't find him because he ducks into a panel.
Right.
I don't know.
Yep. They totally like that. But yeah, the sensors are very arbitrary and capricious.
Yes, they are. O'Brien calls the Admiral. She's against him too, so it must be him at that point.
Yep.
And then O'Brien catches them in secret talks. I'm just confused on why he even beamed down. Like, what's he hoping to accomplish? If he thinks they're up to something, couldn't he just beam down like a vocal recorder to catch the audio and not risk his own life when he thinks he's on his own anyway?
Well, and I guess to go to the Hitchcockian thing or the paranoia thing, like, is this how paranoid O'Brien would become, or is this just how paranoid the replicant would become? Or, is that why he's making mistakes and not understanding things? He's a copy of a copy? I don't know. But I
don't either.
I feel bad for the replicant at the very end. But
I will say, I thought that was O'Brien. I was surprised when we saw a replicant, and then they just killed the replicant. And it's like, do you really want to kill him? Shouldn't we do something else before we kill him?
I agree.
And that replicant was so good. He really thought he was O'Brien and had all of O'Brien's thoughts and feelings.
Yeah. Like I said, I feel at the end, I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
I'm like, you guys can't, Bashir, you can't do anything to try and save him?
I mean, we don't need two O'Briens. I guess that's the alternate episode, right?
Fair point.
Both O'Briens come home and then Keiko's like, nope, I'm out.
I can barely tolerate one of you, let alone two.
Right. Yeah. I can't see that working at all. Yeah, that's all I got on this one. It was a rough one.
Yeah, that's all the notes I got. I wanted to be better, but it wasn't.
No, especially with the season having been good so far.
Yeah.
Who was your shady character this week?
Just because she was so bad at it, Keiko? Yeah, just like everything she said was like, that was suspicious. Okay, that was suspicious. That was suspicious. Yeah.
That's fair. I just put everyone.
Yeah, that's good too.
Yeah,
that's a good one too.
I mean, I don't know how you pick. Because I guess Fake O'Brien's shady, but he's not really because he doesn't know that he's being shady, right? He thinks he's sincere.
Mm-hmm.
Who was your annoyance?
Grumpy O'Brien yelling at everyone.
Fake O'Brien? Faux O'Brien? Faux O'Brien?
Faux O'Brien, yeah. Replicant O'Brien, yeah.
I'm calling him
they got that part down right. Yeah, he's grumpy.
Yeah, Faux O'Brien is my annoyance as well.
The way he was yelling at our guy, Ensign de Curtis, and he's just like, hey, man, I'm just doing my job.
Yeah.
Why are you yelling at me? Well, Cisco told me to do this. Oh, he did he? Well, blah, 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 blah. I think, why are you yelling at me? I'm an ensign. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, who are you getting a drink with?
All that said, O'Brien. Real O'Brien.
I had real O'Brien as well, so we are agreed on both drink and annoyance.
Yeah.
Because, that sucks for him.
Yeah.
And now he's going to come home and nobody's going to treat him bad.
Right, and we don't really know what he went through. It's the weirdest tell and not shows. Like I said, that's why that was my alternate episode. It was like, what? How did they find him? How did they rescue him? What happened? That's the story. It's kind of like the TNG episode where Troy wakes up as a Romulan. It's like, wait a minute, you guys buried the lead here. How did that all happen? They just somehow Palpatine returned it. And just to do the Star Wars portion of this podcast, the Gilly's Pizza retailer on the Star Wars Minute was like, I'm glad they just said somehow Palpatine returned. He's like, I don't want a half an hour of how that happened. And I agree with him on that. But in to go back, and I know I'm going to TNG, but end of this episode, no, that I would want to see. That those are good episodes in and of themselves. And in this instance, definitely, I think would probably be better in this episode. Face of the Enemy, hard to say, but I'm still, Face of the Enemy, I'm like, just give me another episode where I see that. And then give me this episode. This one, give me one of just give me the rescue episode. I don't need to see this episode again.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was... the other thing I guess we didn't mention was it was directed by Les Landau, one of our regulars, and written by Paul Robert Coyle, who's best known for writing Hercules: The Legendary Journeys, 14 episodes, this one episode DS9, and one episode of Voyager, and 2 episodes of Simon and Simon. So, yeah, it's a season 1 episode of Voyager, so probably not a great one, but yeah.
I did not expect the Simon and Simon to come in there.
Well, he's got 2 episodes of Chips and 4 episodes of Barnaby Jones as well.
Okay, all right.
And then 1 episode of 1992's Superboy.
Interesting.
But yeah, Hercules was his main job. He did a few episodes of Xena as well, and then 1 episode of The Dead Zone, and no credits after that.
All right. Yeah.
Ranking the episode. I mean, obviously we're going to start relatively low.
Yeah. Feels like it.
Let's start with Second Sight.
I could be swayed to go.
Yeah, I'm a little... Yeah. The one below that is Melora.
That's what I was thinking. Second Sight one. Yeah. Melora is she blind?
No, but she's got the gravity.
Heavy gravity thing. Yeah. It's that's the one that's lower.
Yes. Although I'm kind of wondering why at this point.
I kind of want to give this credit for trying, but I also kind of don't because it didn't succeed at all, or not that much. Like I said, I like the ending, but
I'm okay with putting this at the bottom if you want.
Yeah, I would not argue that.
Okay, let's just put this at the very bottom.
Yeah,
it wasn't a good episode.
Yeah.
Next week, Star Trek: The Next Generation, Thine Own Self. Data is sent to follow a probe that has drifted off course and crashed on a primitive planet, only to crash on the planet himself with no memory of any event prior to crashing. So Data forgets who he is.
All right.
Until then, live long.
And tell Keiko I love her and prosper.
Yeah.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?